The Oneida community was a perfectionist communal society founded by John Humphrey Noyes and his followers in 1848 near Oneida, New York. Noyes and his followers implemented a series of practices that were heavily contested and criticized by those of the times, including stirpiculture, communal raising, mutual criticism, and complex marriage. The main question that our group followed and wanted to answer is, why did the Oneida community put communal raising, mutual criticism, and stirpiculture into practice, and what did they think the benefits of this would do? The Oneida community was well known for being a group of promiscuous people who liked to have sex with multiple other people of the opposite sex. Noyes would selectively breed those who he thought were best fits and would create the best chance for the Oneida community to continue following his death. Those who were not seen as a great match, even if they were in love, were separated and told not to see each other. Also, the citizens of Oneida were not allowed to be monogamous by John Humphrey's rule. He said that love in the exclusive form has jealousy for its complement, and jealousy brings on strife and division. Later in this segment, we'll discuss the story of a man named Victor Hawley, who was in love with a woman named Mary Jones, who was also part of the Oneida community and was denied their love by Noyes in their request to have a child. They were forced to be separated. Oneida put stirpiculture into practice because they wanted to create genetic and morally perfect children to continue the group. Noyes enforced his own rules about free love and selective breeding in order to control the group, as he felt that this was what was best and would ultimately lead to the success of Oneida. The Oneida community attempted to oppose any type of traditional family relationship through communal raising and complex marriage. They believed that the institution of marriage as an exclusive possessive relationship between a man and a woman did not exist in the kingdom of heaven. Because of this, children after 1 year of being with their mothers were expected to be a part of the community and were expected no attachment with their biological mother. The Oneida women were privileged and had a sense of freedom because they didn't have to play the traditional role of being a housewife and raising kids by themselves because of communal raising. Children were thought to benefit from this by learning from all sorts of different people, all different skills and tools that they can use in their future for the good of the community. Mutual criticism was a way for members of the community to voice their concerns and complaints about others of the community and to make this known to the public. You'll see later we'll have a segment about a man named Charles who was mutually criticized by the group. Although criticized by others, Noyes believed that this technique would bring out the perfect person and would create perfectionists out of people. The Oneida community overall believed all these practices, communal raising, mutual criticism, and stirpiculture, would all improve the longevity of the community and allow them to survive long after their lifetimes. Now let's learn about stirpiculture and its role in the community.
Stirpiculture is a term used specifically by Oneida founder John Humphrey Noyes to explain his selective breeding, otherwise known as eugenics. This idea is fully introduced in Noyes' 1870s essay on scientific propagation, where it is stated the positive good of the process is carried on by selecting for propagation the best individuals of both sexes, but especially male, as Noyes believed this would be the best fit for the community. In Oneida, people were not able to procreate as they pleased, as people were supposed to have children when the community was ready for the next generation, and not when the individuals involved were ready. The citizens of Oneida were also not allowed to be monogamous, as John Humphrey Noyes said, love in the exclusive form has jealousy for its complement, and jealousy brings on strife and division. Citizens of Oneida were also not able to choose who they had children with, as it was assigned by John Humphrey Noyes and who he saw as the fittest matches, although they did need to have mutual attraction to each other. Noyes would choose the fittest, holiest people free from physical defects to breed with each other. These couples would have to be pre-approved and had to be determined to be good matches before they were allowed to procreate. Oneida men also participated in male continence, in which the men were not allowed to perform sexual acts to completion in order to not interrupt their stirpiculture. This is all discussed in the book Special Love/Special Sex, an Oneida Community Diary, which details diary entries from a member of Oneida, Victor Hawley, and his struggles with private desire and the overall good of Oneida. The diary is mostly about him falling in love with another member named Mary Jones and how they weren't allowed to be together and have a child together in Oneida as their love was considered impure. After Noyes denied their request to have a child, he then ordered that Mary Jones be impregnated by his son as he saw his own family's DNA as superior. The recognition that certain bloodlines or families were clearly superior and that the best results could be obtained by managing the pairings comes directly from this book, and it is discussing the fact that Noyes would not let people have children together unless he saw them as perfect genetic matches to create perfect children. After living in Oneida for 23 years, the two decide to leave Oneida so that they can live their own lives together. Oneida and John Humphrey Noyes put stirpiculture into practice because they wanted to create genetic and morally perfect children to continue the group. Noyes enforced his own rules about free love and selective breeding in order to control the group, as he felt this is what was best and what would ultimately lead to the success of Oneida.
We'll now take a look at communal raising and how it was seen as better and more perfect by the Oneida community.
The Oneida community practiced communal raising and complex marriage. Noyes' followers were known to be selfless, such as having exclusive relationships of all forms. To achieve this social structure, the Oneida members had to prevent any type of traditional familial relationships. The way they approached this was by having each man marry each woman and vice versa. This way, everyone is sexually available to each other. They believed that the institution of marriage, as an exclusive possessive relationship between a man and a woman, did not exist in the kingdom of heaven. Because they believed in the potential for creating a quote-unquote heaven on earth, they believed they were laying the foundation for a new state of society by developing the true theory of marriage. According to the Historic Structure Report, children were very important in the community and every effort was made to introduce them early to the ways of communal living. Infants remained with their mothers for up to a year after they're born and then later shared with the community. The children became property of the whole community. Much as material property was held in common, so too were the children cared for and loved by every member in the community. As a general principle, they felt that a child is best brought up in an open community element and not in a closed circle of family relatives. By doing this, every adult was obligated to raise each other's kids. This meant that biological parents did not live with their offspring to help prevent each other from developing attachments to each other. Noyes indoctrinated his followers with the idea of ascending fellowship, where the elders led younger members by introducing them to what they saw as the holy pleasures of sex. Shortly after these children hit puberty, they were assigned a succession of older love partners. Early teenagers commonly slept with people in their 50s or even 60s. And the New York Times cites sources that suggest Noyes often assigned himself 12 to 13-year-old girls, taking advantage of his position as sexual arbiter.
The Oneida community also participated in mutual criticism. We'll take a look at how this affected the group and those in it.
We look now at another unique aspect of the Oneida community, mutual criticism. According to the essay A Brief History of Mutual Criticism by Grants and Brewer, the term is defined as the practice undertaken by a collective in which each member of the community is subjected to criticism by the group, in this case, Oneida. The idea behind this practice was to voice concerns, complaints, or compliments to any member of the community that others saw fit to criticize. One such instance was recorded by Charles Nordhoff when he visited the community for observation over several days and centers on a man Nordhoff refers to as Charles. Charles is in attendance at one such mutual criticism meeting and volunteers himself to be criticized by the community. Oneida community leader Jonathan Noyes was also in attendance and started the proceedings by asking Charles if he had anything he wished to say. Charles responded by pointing out a few of the faults he saw in himself, and when finished, the floor was open to others who wanted to call attention to what they observed about Charles themselves. Feedback started to pile in, with comments stating that Charles was not given to consult with others or to seek or take advice, further that he was haughty and supercilious and thought himself better than others with whom he was brought into contact, as well as he showed his liking for certain individuals too plainly. These observations initially come across as random, but the underlying subject of cohesiveness is by no means unintentional. Although this account makes the process sound humiliating, the reason for Noyes' incorporation of mutual criticism into the Oneida community was based purely on the idea of perfection for the individual so as for the perfection of the group as a whole. It is no coincidence that all of the criticisms directed at Charles dealt with cohesiveness, or lack of it, within the community. In the article, The Psychology of Free Love in the Oneida Community by Lawrence Foster, the reasoning behind the implementation of mutual criticism is explained in the context of the group. Values, as set by Noyes, stress the subordination of individuals and their private, selfish interests to the good of the larger community. With this reasoning, it can be understood that in order for the community to truly embody the perfectionists they claim to be, one must start by bettering the self.
So why did the Oneida community put community raising, mutual criticism, and stripiculture into practice? Because all of these things helped them maintain order. The Oneida community implemented the practice of community raising because it conditioned their children to hold the same beliefs about love as the rest of the community. Being raised without any dedicated parents or nuclear family lowered the risk of children leaving for the outside world, while also raising the chance that the children choose to stay inside the community because it's all they've ever known. The Oneida community also employed the practice of mutual criticism. They stated that it was used to help better the individuals living in the community, but whether they knew it or not, it was also a tactic that held people in line more strictly. The community decided what was acceptable behavior and what was not acceptable. So when a member started acting out of line from the approved behavior, mutual criticism would be a force pushing that member back in line and back into the approved behavior. This is similar to the social norms and consequences that we know, but much more deliberate and powerful. Lastly, the Oneida community selectively bred members with the most desirable traits, such as holiness or other various genetic traits. They used this artificial selection much in the way that natural selection works. By not allowing unfit people to reproduce, they ensured their next generation was healthy and prosperous in the community. However, this could have also been used to keep the members of the United community in line, as well as ensuring healthy children, because those who were not selected for breeding would look to the people who were as a goal. Choosing who has babies and who doesn't redirects the innate desire for reproduction in those who do not get chosen, and focuses them on being more like the people who did get chosen. So is all of this moral? Treating people like sheep, letting them live as a pact, raising each other, free to roam and love anyone, getting bred at the will of a shepherd? Well, yes and no. On one hand, there seems to be a lot of primitive psychological manipulation methods at work here, which would suggest that this is highly immoral, almost taking away the member's ability to think freely. But it's important to remember that every society does this. Some societies outright take away the people's ability to think and speak freely, while others use quieter methods, such as starting useless political arguments to distract the public from the more real problems. Even Twitter and Amazon use very specific shades of blue on their website that have been proven to manipulate the users into staying on the sites longer. It's not even a secret that fast food places use the colors red and yellow to manipulate their customers. Does this make it okay? No. But it's important to realize that the Oneida community isn't exactly the odd one out.